Thanks for joining us for the KOHO 101 Community Connection Podcast, a look at business in the greater Wenatchee area.
It's the KOHO Morning Show. Great to have you with us on this Thursday edition of the program up to the 15th of July, 2021. And time now for another installment of our Community Connections podcast series with the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce. These are coming to you weekly here on the program, at least once a week, with Shiloh Burgess, Executive Director of the Chamber, who's in studio today, along with Stacy Luckensmeyer. Stacy is the past president of the Our Valley, Our Future effort, and we're going to talk with both Stacy and Shiloh this morning about where that effort's at current, and also about where it's going in the future. And Stacy, Shiloh, I appreciate the time very much. Thanks. I appreciate the time.
Thank you for having us this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, Our Valley, Our Future, this has almost become synonymous for residents of the Wenatchee Valley now, even though it wasn't created that long ago. So I think a great place for us to start, Shiloh, would be just a little overview, a history for those that maybe are familiar but aren't too familiar with the organization, or maybe aren't familiar at all with it.
Well, great things are birthed over a cup of coffee. An opportunity, right, Stacy?
Exactly, and that is how Our Valley, Our Future got started. In the front window, the round table inside Cafe Mela, a regular monthly meeting with a number of folks who were connected to and working in economic development. And Lisa Parks was the executive director for the Port of Douglas County at the time, and she and Jennifer Corfiatis, who was with the Economic Development District, said, we're having the same conversations over and over with the same people, and I think we need to put all of our heads together and start really putting some thoughts and plans together for our future. And after we did that regionally, with a regional mindset, met with for a few months in a row, Lisa once again spoke up and she said, we sure have an awful lot of ideas here, but what do the rest of the people in our community think? We can make an awful lot of decisions for people in some of the different roles that we're in, or we can ask them what they would like. And that was a really defining moment. From that came Our Valley, Our Future.
And a little help from America's Best Communities, which was a frontier competition at the time. But really, we were already heading down that direction, and they provided a lot of funding. And thanks to a lot of community participation in the initial survey work and whatnot, we created a 20-year vision for Our Valley. And with that, had, I think, 180 action items and 7 game changers. And now it's been 5 years, almost 6, since the inception of that project that we started getting to work. And we're kind of starting that all over again here with another survey coming out of COVID, which is really important. So for us as the chamber, Stacy just referenced us as the Magnificent Seven, or maybe the motley crew made up of 7. But the Chamber of Commerce was in the beginning, was a founding member of Our Valley, Our Future, very proudly so, because it filled an important niche for us, which is community development, which we've been talking about on this segment, and really helped us not only meet the needs of our business community, but serve our mission in the idea of creating and championing our community's quality of life, along with our economic vitality. And so we were assigned a couple different game changers and a few action items in that, but it has proven to be very successful. And as we go through the series, we're hoping to hear from some of those partners. So one of those was the Hispanic Business Council. That was an action item that asked the North Central Washington Hispanic Chamber and the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce to explore becoming one. And after 3 years, that came together, so we'll hear from them. And then another one was the Outdoor Rec Organization, which today we call that TREAD. Probably my personal favorite, because of my connection to Olympia, was the call for us to have a community-based lobbyist. The chamber was already going down that route. One of our very first initiatives in Olympia was to help get Our Valley, Our Future some additional funding to continue on, because it was getting so much traction. We couldn't keep up with what people wanted to do because we didn't have the money to employ the team that was going to be able to do it. And so it's been a great success for our organization, and I think for the community, it's distinguished us. It's an honor to get to say that we're part of that as an organization.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I'd want to do is get political, but it's kind of funny when you mentioned the Genesis story about this, Stacy. I almost feel like there's people on the other end of the podcast, the radio, saying, great, can all of our reps in Washington, D.C. sit down and have a cup of coffee too then? Because, really, you're going back to a grassroots concept with this should represent everyone that lives within the area. And I think it speaks a lot to the integrity of the people involved, yourself included, in that very initial conversation, not to fence off tens of thousands of residents of the area just because of the positions that you hold. You realize that this is going to be an impact for everyone, not just those people and the people that are within your immediate circle of influence. So kudos on that just by itself, because I think unfortunately it's becoming more and more of a rarity in the world at large, but not here in Wenatchee. So that said, how have you managed to get the public to interact with you? Because seems to be that penchant, that group of people in a community, they're very active, and they're always at most of the meetings, and they're always doing most of the things, and they're coming out to the rallies or whatever it is, and they're at the bake sales. And then there are those people that just don't. So you're wanting as much input as possible so that everybody can be included in this. How are you reaching people? I mean, how's that been done so far?
This is our second round of community outreach, what we're working on through this first half of this year. And it's very different this year than it was 5 years ago when we were doing it, changes because of COVID. So prior to, we had quite a number of community events that happened, and we made sure that Our Valley, Our Future and its board members and the other volunteers who are working on the project were present at all kinds of other community events that were happening to make sure that people knew about the survey that we were taking and knew about the vision and our goals and what we were trying to accomplish. Goal being at the time getting as many people in our region as possible to visualize our future and tell us what they wanted that to be. So now we've had to be really creative and use social media and virtual events and partnerships, big-time partnerships with the Wenatchee Valley Museum, with the library. They have hosted a number of virtual events so that we've been able to, once again, tell people about the survey that we're taking now and what we hope they will contribute, their ideas, their goals, their dreams, their thoughts, what they love about this place, what challenges they see are before us. We just really want to know, open-ended, what's on their mind and where do they see us going, so that we can collate that information. So that survey is active and live now. It can be found online at the Our Valley, Our Future website or on Facebook. And we'll be running that for a few more weeks at least, I believe.
I often get credited as saying this, but it was really Rufus Woods. He coined the term "nothing to us without us."
Or nothing about us
nothing,
without us.
Both of it, right? Yeah, nothing about us without us. And that's been such a driving value of the organization, and really trying to create a space where our entire community can engage. So mobile surveys, like Stacy was alluding to, being able to do multiple events in the community in various places, just to be present, just to encourage people to share their thoughts, share their voice, share their hopes, share their vision. It's a little different this time. And so any KOHO listener out there that has an interest in Our Valley and Our Future, we would love for you to be part of this, because we want to become Our Valley stronger coming out of COVID-19. And it's really interesting to me, hearing Stacy talk, it reminded me of the term that we had never heard, which is collective impact, right? We had this grassroots movement and open collaboration and desire from folks because we were seeing problems that had no boundaries, meaning it wasn't a city of Wenatchee problem or a Douglas County problem or a Kashmir problem or a Malaga problem. It was all of our challenges. There were challenges where, whether it was poverty or workforce development or education, it didn't matter where you lived geographically, it was impacting our collective community, and we're so interdependent in this place. And so we got really excited about how we wanted to do this and what we were trying to do. And we had made a presentation to the Community Foundation initially. I don't know if you remember this. I think it was you and I. And they said, oh, well, that's collective impact. And we're like, what's collective impact? And so we found a consultant that understood the collective impact model and has really built that into what we're doing. And to oversimply put it, you have a shared vision, a shared goal, you have shared values in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and then you basically leverage what you can with what other people can bring to the table to achieve that thing, right? And that's a very juvenile version of collective impact, but it's been really successful. And I guess my question for you, Stacy, because you serve on many different organizations or have in this community, your role as at the college working with businesses in the Center for Entrepreneurship, How optimistic do you think we are, and do you think we're gonna find our collective impact again in this, or that desire to collaborate?
Yes. And I think that has nothing to do with optimism.
Good.
Chris, going back to your comment and tying this together with what Shiloh's saying here about, sometimes it's the same people that show up at different meetings and different events, and same people who seem like they're doing the work. And I think the secret sauce for Our Valley, Our Future has been in that collective impact piece. And the fact that, we had over 80 different organizations and individuals leading all of those different action items that our community members asked for. You can pull off incredible things when you all work together. And the size of our community is really unique because we are large enough to have enough people and organizations to come together to do that. Or we're small enough where we absolutely have to do it together if we are going to make anything happen. And, part of our conversations through the past has been about change is coming. The future is going to happen to us, or it's going to happen through us. And if we can hear from our community members what they want that future to be, I am very positive that we have the partners, the organizations, the individuals here that want to help make that happen. We've seen it and we've proven that over the last 5 years. Just the action items that the Chamber alone has worked on and what they have brought forth has been tremendous. And I think they originally agreed to over, 21 different action items to work on. That's a big commitment, and they were not the only organization that made a commitment of that level. And with all of those action items, they're partners for all of those lead organizations too. So there are hundreds and hundreds of people and thousands of hours that have been spent on fulfilling a lot of those action items. Many are checked off and completed. Looking forward to seeing what comes next. For sure.
Absolutely. Stacy Luckensmeyer with us today. She is the past president of Our Valley, Our Future, and still involved with the organization, along with our Shiloh Burgess from the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce, in today for another Community Connections podcast in our series with the Chamber, again, focusing on community developments during this portion of our 4-month phase here, if you will, with the Chamber. Stacy, I wonder about the things that you hear from people, regardless of how many might pitch in on one of your surveys, or what the issue is, or what the, again, dream, hope, wish might be. And I wonder about how you make the determinations. This is a bit of a technical question. There might be, many different answers, but in general terms, how do you decide what actions to take based on the feedback you get? Because it would seem that it would just be via numerical consensus. If there's a spot on the corner that's available and everybody says, we want a new restaurant, and you say, okay, it could be a chicken shack, a donut place, whatever, and then you just count up the votes and people say, okay, chicken shack. But we know that that's not always as easy as it is, because then you have to woo those people to come in. Maybe that doesn't make sense for the demographic overall, the location, the travelers through the area. So you have all these variables. So when you get ideas, let's say that there's 30 people that say one thing for one survey, one portion of one survey, and maybe only one person flutters in this little idea. Do you sometimes look at that one thing and go, hey, that's it?
The decision making on what those action items are that become a part of the final plan, that's actually not made by Our Valley, Our Future board. We involve as many people from our community in those discussions as possible. Prior to, in our first round, we had multiple focus group conversations where we basically brought the themes and the specific requests from our research. We brought that to them and said, what are you seeing in these? And we brought what people who would identify as ordinary, average, live here citizens, and people who were elected officials and decision makers, everyone in between, so that they could weigh in on that. And then we had multiple groups that vetted the perspectives and the ideas and the action items that those groups had come up with. So there's a multi-stage process. We're doing it a little differently this time just because of some of the restrictions that are ongoing. But we still will have different perspectives on it and different eyes on it, so that not only does the community provide the initial information, but they also help filter out and make those decisions. The end result, ultimately, who's going to step up to make some of these things happen? That's the deciding piece. We still have action items from the first plan that never had a lead partner for them. It was not their time. There wasn't the funding for whatever reason. I think there were only about a dozen of those. We still kept them. They're there in the plan. They're still waiting. One of them, actually, I know, has a lead partner that just stepped up this last week. So you just never know. Some things take a little while.
Very good.
That's exciting. I was just thinking about that. One of the things that's important as one of those community partners that has said yes is really understanding what does success look like. And in the original plan, some of the action items, for example, I'm thinking of one related to the culinary experience in the community that they asked the chamber to cultivate. We could never determine what success would look like. And so it was really hard for us to really influence that space. And so we had gone back and, had some conversation with OVOF, and there just wasn't enough information to go, how do we know we've done it? How do we know we can check the box? Some of them were very clear, some of them weren't. So we've learned as a partner, what we need more. So we're communicating that upstream. And I think OVOF as an organization has learned more about how to make these action items more whole in some ways, I guess you could say, in terms of what the community is actually asking for so that we can be successful on behalf of this community. And what I've loved in this whole process is from the beginning, we had a dream and we didn't realize our neighbors and our friends had the same dream until OVOF showed us that commonality and then made it bigger and better and gave us all a place to achieve it, which I just love. It's my one of my most favorite parts of being part of the chamber has been being part of OVOF and how that's pulled this community together and really set a standard from across the state. We have organizations and and that look at that plan and go, how did you guys do this? And we are not shy. We're happy to share it and hand out our consultant's name and get them involved because it's made a difference. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the listeners of KOHO and others engage with this time and make a difference.
Shiloh Burgess with us today, Executive Director of the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce, alongside Stacy Luckensmeyer, past president with Our Valley, Our Future, talking about the organization, Our Valley, that is, and weaving the chamber in, of course, as they're here too for our Community Connections podcast series. This is one of those under the umbrella of community development. If you have missed any of them that have aired here on KOHO thus far as part of our morning show, here on the KOHO Morning Show, you can check them out online. They're available at our website for download, KOHO101.com. Any place you download your favorite podcast, and the chamber has links to. Our last series was on legacy businesses, and this one, of course, applies to that community development piece. Stacy, I really appreciate your time today. Shiloh, thanks so much. Anything else from either of you as we close out here?
Just a last reminder to get online and find the survey, Our Valley, Our Future, on their website or on Facebook. Very easy. We pop right up when you Google that.
Very good. And Shiloh, we'll look forward to seeing you again here in a couple more days, actually, with another guest.
Let's keep the good times rolling.
This is the KOHO 101 Community Connection Podcast. Check back often for a continuing look at business in the greater Wenatchee area.